Hafa and welcome to Weekend Edition. I'm Crystal Paco, so glad you could join us. It takes a village to raise a child. No wonder so many stakeholders are involved in the juvenile justice reform. During trainings this week, technical assistance providers were on island to continue efforts to improve the program. Already seeing much success, what used to be upwards of 80 clients at the Department of Youth Affairs has decreased by over half since the program's implementation. Here's more. No cookie cutters here.
We're actually looking at children individually. Before it's like, okay, it was offense-based. And so you look at a kid, if it was a burglary offense, then you treated all burglary children, that committed that crime, you treated them the same, they'd have the same kind of conditions.
Lonnie Brennan is the Judiciary of Guam's acting chief probation officer. Once a child enters the court system, she says they're pre-screened for risk levels, low, moderate, and high. For the low-risk offenders, research shows too much exposure to the criminal justice system can do more harm than good. For example, a 13-year-old busted with shoplifting.
Sometimes just the arrest itself will help him self-correct. Just meeting with the GPD officer, getting arrested. Sometimes if it's a low-risk individual, a low-risk use, he won't come back to the system. It's the moderate and high, those kids that are assessed to be moderate and high, those rates are the ones we're concerned about. So we want to focus our limited resources on working with those kids so that they don't come back into the system.
What used to be upwards of 80 clients at the Department of Youth Affairs has decreased by more than half.
So now we're down to like 30 a day, but that's still even high.
A big part of improving the system is understanding an adult offender is much different from a youth offender.
We want to make sure that the probation officers that work with kids actually understand that, they're developmentally informed. They understand how a youth's brain works and that they're not just treated as a mini adult. Like 80% of the kids we see have some kind of trauma in their lives. And so we want to make sure when we are doing the assessment that we're referring them, because we've identified their needs, that we're referring them to the right kinds of services.
Part of the reform includes more parental involvement.
Mom and dad can actually be more involved in case planning. So before, a probation officer would say, okay, the judge gave your child these conditions. You report to probation, you do community service, you do this and that. And basically, they had no involvement in the child's case plan. Because of the family engagement is that the parents are understanding our work better. They're appreciating the stuff that we're doing and also the things that their child is involved in.
Other changes include service learning instead of community service.
And service learning is to give children skills, to give them positive pro-social activities, but it's also it's in lieu of community service.
Participants in this week's training included members of the Judiciary of Guam, the Guam Department of Education, the Department of Youth Affairs, and the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center. On island was a team from the RFK Children's Action Corps. Attracting the LGBTQ market to Guam. The Guam Visitors Bureau recently announced an effort underway to branch out and show off the island to that very market around the world. KUAM's Nick Delgado has the story.
Expanding our reach to others no matter where they may live, GVB is now making a push to bring more people from the LGBTQ community across the world to the territory.
And honestly, my first thought was, oh, well, of course, that's sort of a no-brainer. This is a beautiful destination.
Andrew Collins is a writer and editor for the LGBT and mainstream travel publications. GVB approached him during a conference in the nation's capital about the possibility of writing about Guam as well.
One of their initiatives is to try to let LGBT couples who want to get married, that Guam is open for business. What I didn't really think about at the time was how close Guam is to so many different nations where LGBT marriage isn't legal and where you can't get married, and that so much of that push was going to be geared toward Asia, and also military, U.S. military serving in the Pacific Rim.
He'll be writing about his first trip here and how it is an attractive place for those in the LGBTQ community. GVB will then use its resources to promote the island through his experience.
Unlike many destinations, Guam is very unique in that aspect. So there's not much of a transition that we have to do, but the world does need to know that Guam is a place where you can conduct same-sex marriages.
The move by GVB to bring in a wide array of visitors is also a plus for local businesses like Vault owner Jason Padua.
The need was there because the community still needed to find a safe space a space for them to call their own. And this is why the Vault concept has been created.
His gay club in Tumon is among the newest, and he welcomes the efforts of the Visitors Bureau.
I love that idea, and Vault is doing the same way. Guam is just a great destination for people to come, without the fear of judgment, and you could be who you are, and you could get married. You could do a lot of things that you can't in many of the Asian countries.
Reporting for Guam's News Network, Guahusi Nick Delgado.
The University of Guam gets high marks for safety. According to a 2017 campus climate survey administered online earlier this year, students generally feel that the University of Guam would take their allegations of sexual misconduct seriously, that the university would protect the alleged victim and address factors that may have led to sexual misconduct, as well as take corrective action. The same survey shows low marks for UOG services, including food services, parking, and the bookstore, as well as the Business and Human Resource Office. To view the results in their entirety, visit ulg.edu. Passing the torch to the newest Pink Ladies. Officers of the GMH Volunteers Association were recently inducted with a mission to serve the hospital and the public. President-elect Joyce Crisosmo says their mission of the service is more timely than ever with talk to modernize GMH.
What are we waiting for? Let's make things happen, as we can make a difference in our lives for others, and particularly for our GMH hospital, who I think at this point really needs our help. This is the beginning.
The Pink Ladies will officially start their positions in the new year. Locked and loaded, not with ammunition, but with bundles of holiday cheer. It's called Operation Christmas Drop, the U.S. military's longest-running humanitarian airlift operation. KUAM's Carmen Terlahi went along for the ride. She has this next report.
Santa Claus makes his visit to Micronesia every year, but not in a sleigh with reindeer.
Today we went to 2 different Micronesian islands for Operation Christmas Drop, and we were able to drop 5 different bundles out of the back of our planes to allow us to help our training for humanitarian aid efforts in the future.
It's our co-pilot's First Lieutenant Quinn Van Drew's first Christmas drop, bringing Christmas cheer to some of the most remote parts of Micronesia.
On the second drop that we did, there was one specifically marked for the school, and so we have school supplies in there, food, fishing kits, just random other supplies that they might need.
Operation Christmas Drop's mission is simple: to drop these boxes in nearby Micronesian islands filled with toys and school supplies. However, this is the first time they're using the J model.
This is the C-130J model, and so it's different from the H model, which the United States has used in the past. It's a lot different just because there's different crew positions in this plane. We don't have a navigator. It's just the 2 pilots that are on the flight deck, and so there's a lot more coordination and planning that needs to go on between the crew members just to be sure that everything's going safely between the pilots and the loadmasters that are in the back that are doing the drop.
Though it's a mission complete for this crew, it's just one of many more to come for Lieutenant Van Drew.
It's kind of cool to know that this training mission has been going on for 66 years to help us train for the humanitarian aid that we can be providing to different nations in the world when they do need it.
Reporting for Guam's News Network, I'm Carmen Victoria Terlahi.
Stay tuned. Next on Weekend Edition, we'll rehash some of the big stories of the past week, and still to come, the Guam Crime Stoppers report.
There are more ways to experience KUAM News than any other source on Guam. Download the KUAM News app for your Apple or Android device for 24/7 news, sports, videos, weather, streaming with KUAM radio, and important news alerts. And stay connected at home with Guam's first app for Apple TV. All available now from the App Store.
'Tis the season for giving with IT&E gift bundles. Get a free wireless charging pad when you activate a Samsung Galaxy S8, the S8 Plus, the Note 8, or any of the latest Apple phones. Get up to $40 free load when you buy select prepaid phones, or pick up the Figo Atrium 2 and get a free SmartFit watch. Check out our Facebook page for details. IT&E. Life in motion.
If you get nervous about having dental treatment, you're not alone. An estimated 35 million adults experience anxiety or nervousness at the simple thought of visiting the dentist. As your dentist, I strive to make your visit as painless or pain-free as possible. And I frequently tell my patients that in the 21st century, if we can give you medicines to put your tooth to sleep or medicines to take an infection or toothache away, we can surely give you something to help relax you and take all fear away. No one ought to sit in a dental chair thinking of bad childhood memories or fearing injections. If you're a dental coward, but you really do want your teeth fixed, don't wait until the pain is killing you. Come in, tell us your fears, and set up an appointment. We have convinced many that dental treatment doesn't need to be scary anymore. For your helpful dental minute, I'm Dr. Kenny Bourgeois of Paradise Smiles. You shall never know all the good a simple smile can do.
Welcome back to Weekend Edition. This is Rehash, where we recap the big stories of the past weekend. This is a really big story, and actually it's been decades overdue, rather,
right.
at the prison.
Right, nearly 3 decades, as a matter of fact, Chris, where the Department of Corrections was under that consent decree with the district court for not following multiple, or being in violation of multiple things, such as their health care, to the locking mechanisms that are in place. Of course, back in April, we reported that that was lifted by the District Court of Guam after they were able to comply with most of those violations that they had for the nearly 30 years of being under that consent decree order. And just this week, we reported that they got those locking mechanisms finally going. It's going to be installed in several of the prison's posts. So now the big issue that they've had in the past, where prisoners were able to pop the locks and just get out of their cells on their own, that will no longer be the case. Department of Corrections Director Tony Lamarena reassuring everyone that safety is their #1 priority when it comes to running their prison operations. So they're working to put all those systems in place. And they say at least by mid of next year, they'll have those locks in place, including additional security cameras in place so that they can monitor the inmates' movements, plus their staff when they walk around the units.
You know, Nick and I have actually taken many tours of DOC, and we've seen with our own eyes that how you can pick your own lock. So this, again, public safety. But speaking of public safety, Carmen, I know you did some inspections.
Yeah, speaking of violations as well. So I got to do some inspection of Burger King in Tumon, and I followed 2 public health professionals from the Department of Environmental Health. It was Catherine Del Mundo and Vinio Raimundo, really great team. We walked around, saw what they did. Really cool stuff to see how they look at all the certificates. They use a thermometer to check the temperatures, the probe thermometer, the infrared technology, all the stuff that I didn't really know. And I think a lot of people with the multiple health code violations that a lot of restaurants have been shut down in this past year, it was really cool to kind of see them doing their work in action. So hopefully Burger King got an A, by the way.
Shout out to Burger King.
Shout out to Burger King.
It was interesting because you did point out there was one small violation, minor violation.
One small minor violation. The lettuce didn't exactly reach the right temperature, and it was self-corrected on the spot, so it was really cool to know that the department actually works with the restaurants to get those health violations fixed and corrected as soon as possible.
Very thorough checks, great reporting.
And again, thanks to Burger King for allowing us to follow public health on the inspection. Myself spent a lot of time in court as usual, but this particular federal sentencing was interesting because the drug defendant was Sean Johnson. He actually asked for leniency based on asking the court to consider his ADHD. If you know what ADHD is, it's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I always forget what it stands for. But basically claiming that he's had ADHD since he was in middle school. And because of ADHD, he had to experiment. He found himself experimenting with alcohol, with marijuana, and then ultimately got hooked on methamphetamine. And so when he was busted about 2 years ago, his Barragata home was raided. They found about 33 grams of the drug ice, and he did admit to using it, but he also admitted that he just needed it for his ADHD or something like that. But if you do the math, at $500 a gram, that's about $16,500 worth of drugs they found in his home. And it wasn't necessarily to sell it, it was because, you know, he said he needed it for his disorder. Again, he went through several drug treatments, but according to him at the court, he actually never disclosed to any of the facilitators of those drug treatment programs that he had ADHD. And so it's really interesting. I should note the federal public defender actually noted, quote, "It's not uncommon for people with ADHD to self-medicate with methamphetamine." But ultimately, the federal judge did hand down a 71-month sentence. So that's about just under 6 years behind bars. Hopefully he can get better. Hopefully he can get through it.
Right, but he also has the local courts to his
Oh
local
yes,
cases
if this
to deal
name
with.
sounds familiar, it's because he's also been arrested, I think, twice now for prison contraband. So a lot of prison contraband also making the news. Segue to my next story. There's a one inmate who is alleging that, hey, if prisoners were allowed to watch movies, there would be less prison contraband.
More privileges, less contraband. At least that's his argument. We'll see.
Okay. So if you have any news tips for any of us here at the newsroom, just email us at reporters@kuam.com. It's that simple.
Be merry, be bright, and make shopping all right with holiday gift cards from Chuck E. Cheese's Guam, Ruby Tuesday, and King's Restaurants. Receive special offers with every purchase for extra holiday happiness. See stores for details and have fun this season from all of us at the GFS Group.
2017 is rapidly coming to an end, and the big finish is on now. At Cars Plus in Mighty, get big year-end savings on a big selection of new 2017 Ram trucks, Jeep Wranglers, Dodge Challengers, and all Fiat models. Plus, buy from Cars Plus today and receive a Cars Plus value card, where you get 21 cents off per gallon at all Shell stations. Big savings and 21 cents off per gallon with a Cars Plus value card when you buy during a big finish at Cars Plus in Mighty. Cars Plus, driven by you.
The Down Syndrome Association of Guam exists to support families of individuals with Down syndrome. We're a group of parents who have children with Down syndrome and know the joys and challenges of raising them. For more information about the health, development, and education of a child or adult with Down syndrome, please contact Vicky Areola at 472-6114.
How does tourism work for Guam? Half a day! Tourism tax dollars fund improvements around our island. Tourism helps maintain our community centers and public parks. Tourism dollars are invested where it counts, promoting village shops and locally made products. Tourism keeps the spirit of our past alive through restoration of historical sites. Tourism supports environmental efforts that protect our natural resources. Tourism improves our quality of life. It helps make Guam a better place to live, work, and visit. Tourism works for Guam.
KUAM TV 8, your home for Super Bowl 52.
Your friends and mine, everybody at the Guam Police Department, are coming up with different programs and patrols to make sure that drunk drivers are kept off island streets, with everybody going to holiday parties, office festivities, and most importantly, holiday shopping and taking time for friends and family. Sergeant Paul Tapau is here. Sarge, happy holidays.
Hey, half a day. Merry Christmas. Thank you for having me.
All right, this is a very delicate time for you and yours over at GPD. Do you guys expand the amount of patrols that you guys are doing, or do you guys add shifts? Or?
Yeah, when the holiday season rolls into effect, we actually implement a holiday plan to address a certain issues such as the safety, the robbery suppression task force, but more importantly, our DUI suppression team. Our highway patrol officers are working a 24-hour shift operations. And, they are also working in conjunction with other law enforcement officers and making sure that the roads are safe this holiday season. And, this is the time when people are celebrating. So as a reminder, our officers are out there and, it is against the law to drink and drive. And regardless of how you feel that you're okay, you know. If you are impaired, you are going to face the consequences.
Okay, I want to talk about that for a sec, because we always tell people, you know, like you shouldn't drink and drive, everything like that. People still continue to go to parties, you know. Sometimes they may act a little bit irresponsibly, but what are the penalties if people are caught to be under the influence?
If you are caught to be under the influence of the per se law of 0.08, and as a former highway officer, you know, you will actually spend 2 days in jail. It's a mandatory confinement policy, and then the fees associated with that, with the possible of revocation of your driver's license can be at stake, and it really does take its effect. And this is just the part when you get pulled over and get arrested. But the more drastic picture is when you have consumed alcohol and you get behind the wheel and you're thinking you're fine and you cause a crash that can turn fatal. You're going to have to pay a pretty price for that. And it's not just the court fees and the jail time. It's the life that you selfishly took because you made that choice to drink and drive. Mm-hmm. And we've seen it all the time as crash investigators, the fatalities associated with drunk driving, and it could have been easily prevented had you made the choice not to drink and drive. Mm-hmm.
Well, there's something called the Tri-Agency, and I know it's GPD and 2 other groups are now within GovGuam. Tell me a little bit about that and how you guys are trying to deter drunk and driving.
So it's not just drunken driving in the park because, you know, we have a highway patrol officers who also have Port Authority and Airport, but we're, you know, the tri-agency effect is going to, it combines with the efforts with Department of Agriculture's conservation officers and Department of Parks and Recs law enforcement side, the park rangers and everything. And it's geared towards addressing drunken behavior associated with just different things such as people out drinking in the parks, you know, different things that happen criminally that is associated with alcohol. So the partnership and the merger with this, it's a combination of the law enforcement agency coming together for a greater good, which is addressing issues with alcohol-related events and stuff.
All right, well, as we always do each and every week, why don't you segue us into our crime of the week?
Okay, this week is a robbery that occurred out here on Route 16 by the American Bakery site right across the Micronesia Mall.
All right, here's what you can do to help the good folks up in Delhi.
On Sunday, November 26 at around 5:20 in the morning, officers assigned to the Dedito Precinct Command entertained a robbery complaint that occurred at the Winter Game Room on Route 16 Army Drive in Harmon. Now, according to the police report, 2 male individuals with shirts wrapped around their heads entered the game room and rushed towards the cashier's cage. One of the male suspects, wearing a white t-shirt, put out a black